Hi there, good noon and welcome back to another session. Now that we are reaching the last leg of the exam, I think it's even more important for me to answer and address your queries. So if you have any doubt, any question, any concern, make sure that you drop it down in the chat below and I would love to address that straight away. So you are on BYJU'S exam prep channel dedicated to the CAT. I think this channel is built so that we can take you to the D-Day and across, and that D-Day is just 10 days away now. This is the 10th, in fact the 10th day is going to be the CAT exam, and I am already tingling with excitement. I hope you too are. In case you are new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe. My name is Vikrant. I am your personal coach for all things related to English and communication. Hi Abhirami, Gautam Rathore, and so Sonali has been a very regular with us. अगस्त्य मुझे अच्छे अच्छे गाने याद करवाने की कोशिश कर रहा है, मगर घबराइएगा नहीं. I am not going to get derailed. I am not going to lose my focus. I will steadfastly keep on continue to focus on your exam prep, and that's what we do anyway. Okay, so questions. कुछ अब तू ये नहीं बोल सकता कि मैं तेरे से बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. तेरा कॉल आया, फिर मैंने कॉल बैक करा, कल तूने फ़ोन नहीं उठाए, तो now you cannot really blame me, so I am in the clear now. How about the rest? What's up? How's it going? Excited तो है. Sunny, a very good noon, Sunny. Very good noon, man. Really nice to see you around today. So, as usual, before we start, here is something for our brains. So don't settle for average. Bring your best to the moment. Then whether it fails or succeeds, at least you know you gave all you had. So this is in a way my philosophy. This is in a way my way of ensuring that I sleep well. Any day when I know that I have done everything that I could have done in pursuit of my goals, I'm able to sleep well. But days where I believe that, oh, I could have done more, are the days when I have some trouble. And off late I anyway have some trouble because the workload is so much with the exam approaching that I think even after doing my best, I at times feel that, oh yaar, थोड़े और घंटे होते ना दिन में तो कितना अच्छा होता. But that aside, I still sleep with the satisfaction कि हाँ यार इतना ही कर सकते थे आज, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and, but sir, we are studying whole day. Can't we just take Agastya now in the last 7 days? I don't know about you, but when I was an aspirant just like you, when I was on the chairs that you are in today, I had this philosophy that I would not study during the last week. Okay, so what you do in the last 6-7 days is not going to affect you much. Of course, that does not mean that you go out and party and all. What you study in the last 6-7 days is not going to matter a lot. What you've studied in all the months preceding to it are obviously going to matter a lot. I used to keep the last 6 days, 7 days for just settling to a nice gentle rhythm where I'd focus more on the mental aspect of the game. I'd focus more on remaining stress free. I'd focus more on taking my mind away from the exam. Okay, so that's an equally important part, you know, visualization, meditation, reading a book at the time slot at which I was supposed to write the CAT. These are the kind of things that I went ahead and engaged in. I'm sure you can do that too. Hi Anish. Lakshmi, I don't know, we should have some inference based question today. I don't recall it very well. If we have one, we'd be able to look at it closely. Personally, I don't find them difficult. Normally the difficulty in inference based questions comes indirectly from two areas. We are either not able to understand the text well, in which case we should have a problem in comprehension based questions too, or the problem in inference based questions can come through our inability to figure out the assumptions. right? So these are the two basic areas which eventually go ahead and affect you in inference based questions. So for most of us, if comprehension is not a problem, then their inability to identify the assumption is. I hope you'd work on that and you'd be able to fix it. Okay, so let us go ahead and start. Here are your directions for the first 4 questions. Read the passage, answer the questions, as simple as that. I'll take you through it paragraph by paragraph. So let's start. Passage 1 on your screen. Agastya, this is at par for my session here. In fact, the previous one had even more people. In my sessions, I've usually had even in the last ones. I typically have more people than this, so I won't say this session is unusual, but let's see. I am eating into your last line, so let me make myself a little smaller. There you go. Let's see. Go ahead, read it. Once you're done, let me know. Good afternoon, Udit. In my time zone, at least, it's afternoon, so. Google 45 definitely yes. 25 definitely no. अब कितना ही मुश्किल पेपर बनाना पड़ेगा यार 25 पे 99 परसेंटाइल के लिए, बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा वो तो हाईली अनलाइकली. Okay, so in case you have read the paragraph, let me take you over to the next one now. Good afternoon, Shrikant. Welcome. Just read fast and catch up. So this is the second paragraph of the passage. So you just need to go back a bit and read the first one again. Done? Should I take you over to the next one? Udit, that's exactly why I said in my time zone. So I know that all of us happen to be, at different places, and therefore. Okay, here is the next one. This is actually the last paragraph, so let's read it and then be ready for the questions. Ready? So I think this is one of those passages that I read in the CAT. I came out, I talked to some other students around, and what I got to know was, what I got to realize was that a lot of us were in the same boat. Not in the same boat, sorry. I looked at this passage as like easy peasy, and that's because I've read philosophy extensively. I have read within philosophy, I know that a lot of passages come from this sub area called epistemology, and I've read it rather well. And if for anybody who studied epistemology, this is a like walk in the park. However, a lot of people have not read epistemology or skepticism that carefully, and therefore they thought that the difficulty level is relatively higher, whereas I looked at it and I like, okay, आसान सा ही है यार. Not really. Abhinami, unperturbed means somebody who is not upset, somebody who is not disturbed. So difference. Okay, so let's dive into the questions then. Here is the first one. Oops, sorry. Did I misinform you? That was not the last paragraph. This is. And even here, no, this was the last paragraph. What happened? What went wrong in my slide? Okay, let me just fix it for you once again. So that was indeed the last paragraph. I think I accidentally repeated my slide twice. Here is the first question for you. So what's your take? The author discusses all of the following arguments in the passage except. What's your answer? A. Okay, so let's start. A. Philosophers maintain that the scandal of philosophy should be of concern to everyone. Mentioned, not mentioned. This is very much mentioned, and this is where it is. So A cannot be our answer. A is an argument that is mentioned in the passage. We are looking for something that is not mentioned, right? Author discusses all of the following except, so the one which is not discussed should be the answer. Okay, B, the best way to deal with skepticism about the veracity of knowledge is to ignore it. Oh, this is subtle. Let me take you back. The passage says the most common way to handle this situation is to ignore it. Now, is common equal to best? No. So the passage nowhere states that it is the best way out. So not something that is discussed. B can be our answer. Let's look at C. Skeptics believe that we can never fully know anything if by knowing we mean knowledge of a reality that is independent of the knower. Absolutely. This is mentioned here. See, this is something that has been discussed in the passage, and therefore C can also be eliminated. And then D, if we cannot distinguish knowledge from opinion or delusion, we will not be able to justify our actions. Is it discussed? Yes. It is, in fact, where did this go? Here it is. Hang on, let me just check it. I'd be able to figure it out right now. Okay, that's about skepticism. Where did this part go? I've been going through so many questions that it's kind of here. This part in the very first paragraph. There it is. So you notice that A, B, A, C and D are all mentioned in the passage. That is what makes B as our answer, and it was very subtle because a large chunk of B is mentioned. The only change that they've brought about is that of a single word. Instead of common, they used the best, and that ended up troubling a lot of people. Kaushik, let's take this outside the session here. Okay, here is the next one. What's your answer for question number 2? So, what's our take? Yes, KKF. Okay, so we are getting D, we are getting C. Let us just dial it down and see. So according to the last paragraph of the passage, we hold our beliefs and presumptive knowledge more or less confidently, usually depending on something. So which one of the following most broadly captures what we depend on? So depending on something. What is it that has been mentioned in the last paragraph? Let us just reread that and we'd hopefully be able to see it. So here is the relevant part. We hold our beliefs more or less confidently, usually depending on how we acquired them. So this is basically the crux. Right? So we are looking for an answer choice that talks about how we acquire them, how broadly and strenuously they seem to be shared or endorsed by various people. So these are the two things that we are looking for. So far I think a large chunk is option C. C says how much of a stake we have in them and what resources there are to support them. This stake part was not mentioned in its context. Resources maybe yes. But if you look at option A, how we came to hold them and how widely they are held in our social circles, that's better. This captures both of these things better, and that is why our answer here should be option A. See, the stake part was not relevant to this particular discussion. Here is the next question. This sentence reminded me of one of the earliest philosophical texts that I read, where I saw ideas like these, that when you are not in the room, the chairs disintegrate. It's only when you are in the room the chair appears as a chair. No one knows what happens to the chair, blah 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 blah. So I was very young then, and I was blown away, like, oh, that's another way of looking at it. So this sentence as a result is very close to my heart now. KKF, as I'd say, I found it easy because at the end of the day, it all boils down to familiarity. And as I shared a while ago, epistemology is an area from which multiple passages have been created by the examiner. So somehow I think, look at it from the perspective of an educator. Areas related to knowledge are obviously going to be close to them. And that is why we've seen a lot of passages from epistemology, educational psychology, linguistics, where we particularly talked about how language shapes our mind and all those things. Okay, so this, in the context of the passage, is an argument presented by the skeptics. They say that we cannot know anything if knowledge means these two things. This was one of those two things. So there, the second thing, let me in fact take you back to the passage. Why even really talk about it without reference to the passage? It's just a few clicks. So let's see. At least not if we think of knowledge as something like having a concrete mental representative of reality, and not if we think of reality as something like things as they are in themselves, independent of our perceptions, ideas or descriptions. So, but because you can never observe them independently. I mean, whenever you are there and you look at them, you see your perception. What happens to that object when you're not there? What happens to the chair? Whether it remains a chair or not is something that you'll not be able to figure out, right? So this has to do with perception, and in that context, as a result, C is going to be the best answer. If the reality of things is independent of our perception, logically we cannot perceive that reality because we are always there looking at them. It's only then that we form our opinions. So it is not about merging. It is not literally about eyesight. And floating subjective perception is probably the farthest from it, really. So it was more of a contextual interpretation question. Here is the next one. The author of the passage is most likely to support which one of the following statements? So anything that is inconsistent with the passage should essentially become your answer. This is again very subtle. There are a lot of distortions here, nothing else. A lot of distortions of the passage. If you can eliminate all those distortions, you'd be able to find the answer rather easily. So A is consistent with the passage, but if you look at B, this and this, they are actually taken from two different paragraphs and merged together. It is not something that has been mentioned in the passage at all. The two halves are mentioned separately in two different contexts. So B can be ruled out. C, the confidence with which we maintain something to be true is usually independent. That is false. It can depend on the source. And D, the last part, to know that reality independently, to know. The skeptics say that we can never figure it out independently because of that inherent limitation of observing. And therefore, D can also be eliminated. I think KKF has a very relevant question for us. Should we attempt an RC by looking at the difficulty of the questions? KKF, not something that you can actually figure out. I'll tell you why. We know that there are around 20 odd different RC question types, right? Now, I believe that because there are just 20 odd question types, you can always learn each and every one of them and become really good at them. But by now that we are just 10 days away, let us say that you're not comfortable with one or more of these question types, then maybe you can use that strategy today. But the truth is that the difficulty is usually not determined by the question type itself. The difficulty is determined by the answer choices. You know how close those options are, how minute a difference between that option and the passage is. And since we will never be able to evaluate the options, all the options, before we read the passage, I generally don't even bother looking at the questions. But as I said, with just 10 days to go, 9 days to go for that matter, if by now you know that you're not comfortable with a particular question type and you see that particular question type in the exam in that particular passage with greater frequency, you may choose to omit it. But normally this is not something that I'd actually follow. So that's passage 1, and with that, let me give you the directions for the next 4. So what are the next 4? The next 4 introduce you to the next passage. So passage number 2. Ready? Shall we dive into that? So make that mental adjustment and start reading this paragraph. Okay, next. Thank you for your input, Sanjila and Atar. When you share that, it makes my job easy. Okay, here is the next paragraph. I don't know about you, but when I read this paragraph for the first time, I'd already read this even before it appeared in the CAT. This paragraph, in fact, this entire bit was like a huge eye-opener. And this paragraph in particular had a truth bomb after truth bomb, like, whoa. And then you read further and you're like, oh. And you're like, oh my God. Boy, how fascinating a hypothesis this is. Atharva, we have taken dedicated sessions on that, in fact multiple sessions on that. The most recent one, I think I took the most recent one on 13th of November. You can revisit it, and maybe earlier sessions too. I think when we are close to the exam, I generally do not go ahead and talk much about the concepts, but if you go farther back, you'd be able to maybe see more of these. Okay, here comes the last one. Ready? Okay, so here is the first question based on the passage. I think two of these answer choices can be ruled out rather easily if we use elimination. That can help you focus your thoughts. What's the meaning of cohesion? Cohesion basically means cohesion is where different things stick together. Okay, so a situation when the members of a group or society are united, then you'd call it cohesion. So all the members of a group, of a society, of a country, when they're united, then you'd call that cohesion. As Prasanna said, unity, Sunny, unite. Absolutely correct, guys. So A says they need to leverage both types of power. We are talking about successful leaders. What are leaders supposed to do? Leaders are supposed to keep people behind them. Right? So what do they need to do? They need to engage in human manipulation in the sense that it is used in the passage. Human manipulation does not require first type of power, it requires only the second type of power. And therefore to say that they need to leverage both types of power, that will be wrong. That is what allows us to eliminate A. B on the other hand is correct. C, there is no comparison given between present and past. And D, use myths to attain the first type of power. No, they use myths to attain the second type of power. The first type of power does not depend on myths, that depends on the absolute truth. So C and D were relatively easy to eliminate. A was the only one which was a little tricky, and that is why I said, that if you eliminate, two of them are easy, C and D. A and B could have created a bit of a challenge for us. But the correct answer here is going to be option B. Here is question number 6. The central theme of the passage is about the choice between what and what. Arey Atharva, in our country we anyway keep on having elections somewhere or the other, so it's fine. But yeah, there was a time when we used to get a lot of political theory based passages, especially passages that talked about or that somehow revolved around the concept of justice. In fact, the frequency has gone down. Okay, so here the correct answer is option B. You can refer to, in fact, the last paragraph. So at the end of the day, it is about truth versus social unity. And it's not truth and power. It's about truth versus social unity. Truth and power was, of course, used in the first paragraph to talk about the relationship between truth and power. But that's not the choice that you have. The choice is tell the truth and lose that unity, or hide the truth and retain that unity. So these are the two options that we had, and that is where B very easily scores over A. We have also picked up D, so let's check. Stories that unite people and those that distinguishes group from each other. There is no choice here. Stories are obviously going to unite people, and those stories also distinguish. It's not a choice. Both of these things happen simultaneously here. It's not an either or situation anyway. Right? And that is why B is our best answer. Here is the next question. Question number 7 on your screen. Start thinking. The author would support none of the following about political power except. Okay, so you notice none and except cancel out. We are basically looking for which one of these the author will support. So this is something that has not been mentioned in the passage, and therefore will the author support it? We wouldn't be able to figure that out. B, while unalloyed truth is not recommended, leaders should stay as close as possible to it. This is false. The author is in fact stated something that is contradictory to it. So B is, the author is against it. C, manipulating people's beliefs is politically advantageous. Yes, but a leader who propagates only myths is likely to lose power. This is once again false. This contradicts the passage. So the author won't support this part. C is also eliminated. D, people cannot handle the unvarnished truth, so leaders retain power by deviating from it. Yes, absolutely. That is given in the last paragraph. This is consistent with the passage. That is why our answer should be option D. So I think some of us may get confused by that none except combination, but in reality, the moment you see such a convoluted question stem, just take a pause. Trust me, it just takes 5-7 extra seconds and you'd be able to interpret it correctly. And thereafter it is business as usual. And here comes the last question based on the passage. Which this is one question that actually when I looked at just the question stem in the exam, this trumped me. I looked at it like, how would we even answer this? But the moment I went to the answer choices, answer choice by answer choice, it became clearer. The moment I read all the four, I realized that I did not even have to worry about overemphasize. You will also see why. Atharva passage does not mention some limit to a pervasive belief in myths. Where does the passage say that the author advocates there must be some limit to pervasive myths? That part was not present in the passage. That is why we ruled out option A. Shitansh, 90%, 7 questions. Yeah, you'd end up cutting it way too close, Hitansh. How about at least going ahead and attempting 10 questions, man? Reach that far at least. Absolutely right. The correct answer is B. The other three do not even talk about importance of fiction. Since B is the only one that talks about fiction, that has to be the only one that can be chosen as our answer, irrespective of whether we agree with the overemphasize or not. So that concludes this particular session of ours. If you want more practice, keep on joining us for our crash course where we take a session at 7 p.m. every day. In fact, I'd be taking the next one tomorrow at 7. So if you want to work with me on English a little more, join me at 7 tomorrow. And for even more practice, you can always enroll in our test series. And in case you're struggling with some of the things, for example, somebody talked about inference-based questions. Hey, my recommendation is unlock a 3-day trial. Go to the verbal logic classes of the batch. Go through the first 2 classes of verbal logic. After that, go through the class on RC which talks about reasoning-based questions, particularly inference questions. And I'm sure you'd get the necessary conceptual clarity and it'll make it easy for you. So try that out. And all these things can actually lead to great results, just like some of these great results that we've produced in the past. So that's it from me today. I look forward to meeting you guys once again. That will be tomorrow. Until then, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch, and don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions, issues, or concerns. Have a great day ahead. Until I see you next.